You are in the right place because this is another episode of the Dateable podcast where we dig into modern dating culture, why it is the way it is, and how we can make it better. Not just from an individual level, but from an overall cultural level. Don't you feel like you're part of something now? Like this is not just a podcast, you're part of a movement.
Collectively, we will save modern dating all.
We'll
do it. We'll do it. I feel like it's in the most dismal state that we've ever seen it. So the time is now.
If not now, when? Right?
To bring it back with some of the trends we're seeing with quiet quitting, everyone's probably heard that term. I feel like if it follows anything similar, right? It's like the Great Resignation is people that are kind of fed up and they want to make change and they want to make moves. But then quiet quitting, you're kind of just sitting there, passively kind of letting things happen. And, in work, we could debate this all day long. There are some cases that it's not like totally outlandish to do what your responsibilities are and nothing more, and get paid for it. Totally get work-life balance and all that. But we've started to see a bunch of articles with how this relates to dating. And I actually feel like if we move to the state of apathy, then that is actually the worst place that modern dating could go. Because at least the opposite of hate, or at least the opposite of love being hate, means that there's still love essentially. You always hear the opposite of love is not hate, it's being indifferent. And I think that actually is what quiet quitting your dating life is doing if we go down that path.
That just sounds like ultimate hell for people to quiet quit dating. What does that mean? You're physically present, you're physically going on dates, but you are not invested in anybody and you're 1 foot out the door. That is terrible. Why would anybody want to be around that?
We're not saying that having anxiety with dating, which is the topic of today, is a good thing. I mean, that could cause a lot of pain, but at least it gives you that fire that you're still trying, right? That you still want it in some sort of way. I feel like just being I'll do the bare minimum, I don't care what happens. That's not a way to approach dating and relationships and love. That's actually quite scary.
I think what is the road we're headed down, what it is, it's very scary because people are giving up. It's not even the quiet quitting. It is the end result of quiet quitting is that you quit, right? Eventually you do quit that job, and eventually you're saying you're quitting dating. And we've heard this from many of you out there who said, I've just given up. I deleted the apps. Yeah. I'm just going to see what the universe gives me. I'm not even going to try. And if it happens, it happens. If not, then be it. There's just this defeated mindset that is creating the standstill for us right now. In this moment in time, in modern dating culture, it's creating a standstill because so many people have just thrown in the towel and said, I'm not even gonna do anything about it.
And we're really hoping that this episode gives you hope because we spoke with Alana Dunn, who we've known, in the podcasting world for a couple years now. And she actually worked with us on an event we did with Logan Yuri a while ago for the sounding boards. That was when we first met her. And then she had done the podcast for Hinge. And, we obviously had heard her podcast. She's listened to this podcast. And it's about time we had her on our podcast. And we are also going to be on her podcast in a month or so. So now is the time to subscribe to that too, so you can hear us eventually, but also just catch up while you're waiting for that. But this episode gives me so much hope for all the daters out there because Alana talks about, how she was the most anxious of daters and how she got through on the other side and found that secure relationship. And I love hearing stories like this because I personally resonate with this a lot. I was also a very anxious dater, and I was able to figure out ways to, ultimately move past it and not let it get in my way. And then also just come to terms with the anxiety too. Like there's certain things that I get better with every day, but just being with the right person that's not going to shame you for it, that you could be open with and tell them about what's going on for you. I think there's like so much to learn that makes you not want to give up on dating when you hear stories like this of people that were able to meet wonderful partners. And I feel like most of the times it's not the people they originally went for that were giving them anxiety. That seems to be a recurring theme.
I know. It's never the person that makes you feel like shit that you end up with. What a concept there.
No.
And I think for anybody who's like, I've listened to enough episodes about anxious dating, this episode is actually quite different. I think my takeaway from this episode is different than the other anxious attachment episodes that we've done, because this one, part of it, not all of it, part of it is also about why we actually go for the anxious feeling, that it's almost an addiction. That we want to feel addicted or anxious. And so first we almost have to recognize the addiction before we can move on from the anxiety itself.
Right. Well, we conflate it with chemistry, right? We think that we're, feel the spark and the chemistry and connection is there, but it's really just our anxiety talking. And I feel like we've heard time and time again, like so many people that found the slow burn, the person that maybe it wasn't fireworks from day one, but it always felt calm and safe and comfortable. Like it sounds so boring when you say it out loud, but that is like that is actually who makes a good life partner.
I know. A good relationship is kind of boring to talk about. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Like in my current relationship, I remember at the beginning just being like, there's really nothing for me to talk to my friends about.
No.
There's no like ups and downs. There's no anxious feelings or troubles that's happening. And then I realized like that's a really good problem to have. Like that your friend shouldn't be like, are you trying to meet and form a relationship with someone, or you want dating as a way to bond with your friends? And, I think in the past, maybe I swung more the other.
Mm-hmm. And you'll feel this drastic difference between being with someone who makes you feel unsafe, who makes you question and mind read, versus being with someone who makes you feel supported and safe and respected and loved. It's a drastic change. Because it's so drastic, people don't recognize the opposite behavior because they're so not used to it. If there's no ounce of anxiety, they may think there's no spark. There's no potential for romantic chemistry. There's no future for us. Well, what you're actually feeling is all the right feelings for a good relationship. And so now's the time to recognize what that is.
Can you recall the most anxious you felt when you were dating? Like if there was like one specific story that stands out to you? I can think about 10, but...
Remember when adult coloring was really in a few years ago?
Oh my God, I know what story you're going to tell.
Okay, so dating this guy that I was so into, not for any other reason than the fact that he made me really anxious. Okay, let's just be honest. Because he was not that communicative, because he was very elusive, and I never knew where he was or what he was up to, it made me want him so much more. So we had plans to get dim sum one weekend, and this was the night before we're supposed to get dim sum. Nothing, there's no communication. It's completely pouring in San Francisco. I had just bought 10 of those adult coloring books as a way to just pass the time. So I just colored for hours and hours waiting for him to confirm plans. It made me so anxious, and it was such a terrible use of my time because I wasted the entire night coloring.
Right.
It did not make me feel any better. And the next day, he reached out like 10 minutes before we were supposed to meet up saying, "Oh, are we still meeting up?" I wasn't sure. Awful.
I know. It's like, if you wanted to actually color, by all means, go for it and color. But the fact that that was like a distraction and you could have been doing, I know that feeling too. Like, I've been there before. It's like, you really can't think about anything else or do anything else because all you're thinking about is what you want to happen that's not happening. Like, why didn't you reach out in that situation? Like, looking back.
I didn't want to lose. And I want to be the cool girl.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if we're hanging out, we're hanging out. If not, it's cool. I have other plans, which I didn't because I ran out of coloring books. I had no other coloring books to color at that point. But I used this was such a pattern of mine, is that I would wait until the very last minute. And if they do reach out the last minute, then I come to the date with so much resentment. Like, I come with this combative attitude that they're not even aware of, but then all of a sudden they feel the energy and it's like, what's wrong, you know? And then I've also done this shit. I know you've done this, Julie. It's like you preempt that you're like, okay, I know I'm going to be anxious waiting for this call or waiting for this text, that I'm going to plan my day. Okay, so when he does say he wants to hang out, I'm going to say, I'm so busy. I made all these plans, when you deep down just want to hang out with him.
Right. You know, I'm actually having a revelation because we are doing this episode. We are in the future. We are currently, you know, I'm in Hawaii, but I'm not in Hawaii because we're recording this a week in advance because I'm going to be away.
But she's physically in Hawaii.
We try to stay current with the intros, but when we are traveling, that is our exception, that we'll do 2 weeks out at a time, unless it's like a 4-week trip or something. But anyways, I'm having this revelation because last time I went to Hawaii in 2017, I was dating the British guy that ended up having to leave the country.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's why we broke up. But it was like the very start of our relationship, like a month in. And, you know, we had really great dates, but he also was not like the best texter. And I remember, you know, like we definitely didn't like talk like all day, every day, like I do with my current partner. Well, now I don't because I just see him every day. But before, like that. And I remember, like, I went to Hawaii, and I was kind of like, oh, well, you know, like, if you want to, feel free to text me, like, you know, like, trying to like be like subtle about it. And like, I didn't want us to like go a week without talking or whatever the time was, you know. And I felt like I didn't want to be like the one that always texting him on my vacation to like show that I wasn't thinking about it. But I also did want to hear from him while I was on vacation. And I honestly like didn't know if he was actually going to reach out while I was on vacation, because we had like plans when we're like, oh, we'll hang out when we get back. But it's still like, you know, I wanted to keep the momentum going.
Sure.
And I remember like I hadn't heard from him for like maybe the first 3 days of the trip. And I was like so anxious about it, like looking at my phone all the time. Like my friend that I was with was just like, dude, chill. Like, you know, like who cares? Like, just enjoy this trip. Like, why is this even getting in your way of like, why is this preoccupying like brain space, right? Or just send the text. Like, if you don't want to be waiting. But I wanted to confirm that he wanted to text me. Like, I didn't want to text him. Like, it sounds so stupid saying it out loud, but you know what I mean? Like, the validation that this person likes you. And I didn't want to be me all the time, like reaching out and initiating it. I wanted to feel like he missed me and he was like trying to see what was up. And then finally, like, I remember like putting my phone away because she's like, please just stop. Like, you're driving yourself crazy. And we had like no service anyways. And then like we went and finally got service back. And there was like a text from him. And I was like, oh, phew.
Oh my gosh.
The amount of anxiety for no reason, right? Like, no reason. It's just these like cat and mouse games at the beginning where you don't want to like hand over your quote unquote power. Like, that's all it is. But it really just drives you crazy. And I wish I had that time back on that trip, right?
I know. It kind of ruins your vacation because then you can't relax. You're looking at your phone.
Right. You know, I feel like, though, it's one of those things that, like, some of it's yourself, right? Figuring out how to manage your own anxiety. Because while, like, yeah, it would have been more ideal if he was just texting me all the time and I didn't have to think about it. But at the same time, like, he wasn't doing anything wrong. Like, he just wasn't on my exact timeline, right, of like when I wanted the text. So I think some of it's your own management, which I've learned over the years, but then also some of it's just finding the person that isn't going to give you that anxiety either. Like my current partner, you know, like there hasn't been a day that I've never heard from him through text. I mean, now, but it's only because I see him. But like, there's never been a day where I haven't heard from him, basically.
I mean, that's what a partnership is. You learn to communicate
exactly,
each other's
why
styles.
Do we think? Yes, but I feel like we think that like it needs to be this guessing game, and it just drives us crazy.
The cat and mouse thing, we'll save that for another episode. I have a lot of thoughts about that because I think a lot of people want that feeling of the cat and mouse game in the beginning. Like somehow it's flirtatious and fun and sexy. I don't know. I have many thoughts about it, but we'll talk about that in another episode. You gotta get back to Hawaii, okay? You gotta get back to your vacation.
Yes, and you know, I'm I'm looking forward to not being in that anxious state, but you know, I am really glad that we're putting out this episode because I do think it will help a lot of people put a lot into perspective. I would say that's even feeling like I've come out of it, it still put a lot into perspective for me. And it did cause me to have an aha moment that I will share at the end. I'm not going to give it away, but there was a revelation I had from this episode. Before we get into the episode, our 22-day dating app challenge is still going strong. We've heard some really good feedback from the new cohort that's in it now. A lot of people have said this has made me feel so much more at ease, so much better about using the apps, less anxious. That word has come up multiple times. So if you're not on it yet, go to findingyourperson.com/dating apps and sign up now. A reminder
apps.
That registration. Oh, sorry. Findingyourperson.com/apps. A reminder that registration is going to close the end of October. So if you're debating doing it, the day is today. Get on it. Make the most of this cuffing season.
Oh, yeah. It's completely self-paced. We just want to clarify that. So when we say cohort, it doesn't mean you're going to do this challenge with other people. It's just that you're part of this group of people who are going through the challenge around the same time. But it's completely self-guided and self-paced.
Yes, but you do get to talk to Yue and I and share your profiles. So that is the only interactive moment. But know that there's like a whole group of people doing it with you.